All right, welcome back to another episode of the Black Bullion Show. More good news for gold and silver came out yesterday as we got the numbers for the federal budget deficit in August. In July, we had a deficit of $200 billion. In August, we had a deficit of $200 billion. But August actually should have been more, while July's should have been less, because August began on a weekend. So $55 billion of benefit payments in August were actually given to July. Now, why is this important to gold and silver? Well, the US government pays for this deficit, filling in that growing gaping hole by selling bonds. Now, if you've been tuned into this channel in recent days, then you would know that our government has been having a hard time convincing folks to buy bonds. So, what did the US government do before that they will likely have to continue to do soon? They will have to print more to increase their purchases of these bonds. So, if you're playing chess and not checkers, you are probably stacking. So let's get into some of this info, shall we? But first, if you're new to this channel, please hit that big red subscribe button right down below. Also, please hit the like button. Helps to get this economic evangelism right on out there to the masses to bring more people into precious metals. Okay, so US fiscal year budget deficit tops $3 trillion. So let's dig into it here. The $3 trillion year-to-date deficit was nearly triple the $1.067 trillion deficit for the comparable year ago period, spurred by a massive increase in government spending to battle the economic fallout from the Ronies, as we like to call it here. The previous 11-month deficit record was $1.37 trillion, reported by the Treasury in August 2009 during the financial crisis and recession. The full fiscal 2009 deficit totaled $1.4 trillion. The 2020 fiscal year ends on September 30th. September has traditionally been a budget surplus month because of quarterly corporate tax payment deadlines, but a U.S. Treasury official said it was impossible to forecast whether a September deficit was expected this year. So interesting. I'll be keeping tabs on this for the next month when we actually get those September numbers. So this is where we stand currently right now as far as assets, Treasury assets owned by the Fed. We're at 4.393621. This is in millions of US dollars. So obviously we're in the trillions. Now, as you can see, the asset acquisition began slowing down, particularly after the end of April. It started to slow down, and then in March, it's still, still an increased rate, but nothing like what it was after the Ronies first hit. So it's still going up, but it is slowing down, since the end of April. Now, as we talked about before, the Fed is letting others buy up bonds, but the funny thing is that there aren't any takers amounting in much demand. So the thing about this is, and this was happening pretty much around this time here. Now, the interesting, funny thing is that during this time is when we saw that huge rise in gold. And this is also when we saw, especially in June and August, many of those auctions that, were trying to sell 10-year bonds or 10-year notes, 30 years, all those things. They didn't have many takers. The yields remained elevated for some time. And it was just a shock to many people. But for us who have been paying attention to this stuff, hasn't really come up as much of a shock at all. Now, again, the thing that the Fed will have to do in order to combat this is likely we have so many bonds that have been issued, we're going to have to print some more in order to buy some of those things. So again, right now is a consolidation period. If you're playing chess and not checkers. And I know some of you guys are, I see some of you guys are stacking right now. That actually might be a, pretty good idea, because I can only imagine that we will continue to print more. Again, as Lynn Alden has mentioned, we may have a informal, an informal, I guess you could say, yield curve control, or we could have a formal yield curve control, as she says. So that's it, guys. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new. It's Black Bullion.